Welcome to a Whirly Bear Productions podcast with me, Amber Williams. We explore film finance and distribution, featuring insights from filmmakers, entertainment lawyers, and industry experts. Paul Scanlan is an Emmy Award-winning co-founder and CEO of Legion, the world's first fan-owned entertainment company, a pioneering endeavour that puts fans at the centre of everything they do. Legion is dedicated to discovering and producing original and groundbreaking films and television content. Under Scanlan's leadership, the company is transforming the way content gets made, involving fans in the creative process and delivering unique, high-quality entertainment experiences. Scanlan and his team at Legion are not just changing the industry, they're redefining it. Okay, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Brilliant. I'm very grateful. So thank you very much. Very excited to hear all about Legion. So first of all, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So, well, my name is Paul Scanlan. I'm co-founder and CEO of Legion. And I don't know, I guess I'm one of those guys that is far enough into my career that I'm finally at a point doing something that's at the intersection of three things that I love, which is entertainment, which I've always been passionate about, entrepreneurialism, which is, if that's a word, entrepreneurism, which I've always had a passion for starting new companies, but also, one of the things that I really believe in, and I'm just so grateful that it's a core part of what I get to do, is having purpose with your work, like to put it to good use and to, within the realm of your potential to try to, be a force of positive change. And yeah, we're really grateful for, where we find Legion at this point in our, in our journey.
I love that. And positive change is what we need in the film industry for sure, especially right now. So
especially now with participant going away, I'm so bummed about that. I'm reaching out to everybody I know to try to figure out how we can pick up that torch and run with it. I feel like a combination of participant media and what Legion is doing is could be maybe more viable than just what they were doing on their own.
And so what is Legion doing? What is it? What's it doing? And who's it for?
Yeah, so Legion we call ourselves, we're the world's first fan-owned entertainment company. And what that means is we're literally owned by a vibrant and engaged community of entertainment fans, people that love entertainment and want to make a difference in the world the same way we do. And we're coming together and uniting to be a force of positive change and to back projects that we believe in. And, we always say that individually, we're all fans, we're all part of the audience. And, but like by ourselves, one by one, we don't really have that much power or influence in the industry. But when we unite, we really do. We have much more power than I think we would ever even imagine that we have. I mean, if you think about it, this industry is, a multi-trillion-dollar industry, but it's all powered by us. We are the fuel. We choose what to watch. We pay the subscriptions. We buy the movie tickets. And it's time that we organized and in a way that can be, a force of positive change. And so we started the company, if you look at the name of the company is Legion. And if you look at our logo, our M has a bar over it. And everyone that's a part of our Legion community understands that that's our mission. The M bar is the Roman numeral for 1 million. We want to be a community of 1 million people that take over Hollywood and take over Hollywood in a positive way. We're a disruptive force, but not all disruptive forces are negative. They can be, really positive. Like we feel like the independent film industry is really challenged right now and has had some of the biggest challenges that the industry's ever faced over the last, probably decade. And we can help. We can be a solution to some of those challenges. And so, yeah, we started it, gosh, 8 years ago. We've been a part of many films, and we've been kind of laddering up, I guess, earning our stripes in this industry as one needs to do. You can't just enter the industry and start calling your own shots, but as you earn you know, your stripes, then you can really, get to a point of influence. And we feel like we've reached an inflection point. We have multiple projects that we've now financed, produced, and are distributing with our community coming along for the ride. And yeah, so we're excited about the future. And yeah, I'm happy to tell you anything about what we're working on and all those things. I don't want to go on for too long.
So who can join the community? Is it an open community? Like, could I join if
It's
I wanted to? What's the deal?
absolutely open, yeah. And it's an international community. I mean, we are based in the United States, and so, a huge part of our community is based in the US, but we have people from all over the world. Anyone can join our community, so there's no requirement to invest to be a part of it. And so we have, probably, close to 300,000 people in our community that have just joined it. But if you want to make an investment, you want to own shares in the company, we're using new securities laws that enable equity crowdfunding so that the people that do invest, they're not just making a donation like a Kickstarter or get a coffee mug or a t-shirt or something like that. They legitimately own shares in the company. We're SEC regulated in the United States. We do audited financials every year. And, ultimately our plan and our goal is to take the company public. So you are owning shares in a private company. And so, yeah, anyone, and so anyone can join for free. If you do decide to invest, we always tell anyone, considering it, first of all, we're super low pressure. So we don't like pressure anyone into investing or try to get them to invest more than they should. I mean, we actually do quite the opposite. So you know, we warn people not to invest more than they can afford to lose. I mean, statistically, we're a startup in the entertainment space. It's like double jeopardy on the risk factors. But we believe, I mean, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't believe that we could be one of those companies that defies the odds and turns out and is becomes very successful. And to be honest, we've had a lot of success, and we're more bullish about the project and about what we're doing than we've ever been. But the minimum investment is only $40, right? So the average is about $400. We have over 50,000 investors in the company. And so we're on our way to our goal. And it's been interesting because as we grew, I think our first round was a few thousand investors, and then we got to 10,000, and then 20,000, and 30 and 50. And it starts to grow a little bit like a snowball. We're at a point now where we have a bigger community. We have a lot more credibility. We're producing and financing movies with Morgan Freeman and Ed Harris and Daniqua Martin Green, and submitting them to festivals and getting multiple prestigious festival invites, and then winning the audience award, and releasing those films in theaters. And so we're at a point where I think it's the way we look at it, one of our mottos is having fun can be good business. And we're the kind of investment that it might be different from buying shares in a Wall Street company. When you buy shares in Legion M, you're joining a community. You're joining a community that is doing something interesting in a space that you're hopefully interested in. And a big part of the ROI from investing, of course, long term, we hope and aspire to provide a really healthy financial return, but is also the emotional return that our community gets out of being involved. Like when we when we premiered our film at South by Southwest, they put us in the biggest theater they had because they knew that our community wanted to be there. And so, we had a 1,100 person theater. We packed it to the gills. There were standing ovations, and then we had the biggest party that our sponsors could support afterwards, so that our community could go and be there with cast and the director and meet the producers and have this just incredible bucket list experience.
There's a lot of power in that kind of community when you get to that level, isn't it? That's great.
Yeah.
So do the investors reinvest in each slate, in each project, or do they just invest once, or how does that work?
Yeah. So, there's two options. So you can invest in the company, and when you invest in the company, it's kind of like investing in like Disney or Lionsgate. You own a share of the company, and the company is out there always, like, we have multiple projects that we're always working on. Some things are in development, some things are releasing. About 2 years ago, and that was primarily the only way to invest up until about 2 years ago, we went out to our community and we said, hey, for all these projects that we're developing and producing and getting involved in, they all need finance. And we're going out and getting finance from traditional financiers, independent film financiers, or backstops with distributors and pre-buys and all these things, and then going and getting loans against them. But we asked our community, would you want to invest directly into projects? And the answer was unanimously, almost literally unanimously, yes, we want to do that. That sounds amazing to us. We love what you guys are doing. Because keep in mind that our community is also guiding us, right? So, it's not like they just own shares and wait and see what we're up to. Like, we're constantly in touch with them, telling them what we're up to, and here are some projects that have come our way. What do you guys think? What genres are we not doing that you want us to get into? So we bring them projects now where we give them basically first dibs on investing in and financing the films. And our last two projects were, well, one of them was 100% financed by our community. In 4 days, mind you, like with 2 emails,
Wow.
we financed it was a documentary, so it was a relatively low budget. It was under $1 million, but we had to cut it off after 4 days. It would have kept going, and we didn't want to raise more money than we needed for the film. But now we have a few thousand investors in. We have 50,000 investors in the company, plus a few thousand of them invested directly into that project and are a part of the waterfall. And we call it fan first financing, where we're really like advocating for paying them back, like making sure that they're in a position that investment. So when people make an investment into a project, it's also a risky investment, but it's a little bit different than investing in a private company that might not have liquidity for a few years, versus investing in a project that is going to be monetized within 12 to 18 months. And so we literally, that first project was our William Shatner, You Can Call Me Bill documentary that we produced together with William Shatner. I guess we call him Bill now. But that project was 100% financed by fans. We also submitted that to festivals, got it into South by. We just did our own theatrical release last month, and now it's going out into VOD and everywhere else. And yeah, it's been fantastic. We had we took it on tour with Bill. So we did red carpet events all around the country. I mean, Bill's 93, so we didn't do as many as we wanted to do, but we just talked to him, and he's up for doing more. He had so much fun. We sold out the Lincoln Center, the Alice Tully Hall, not like the Lincoln Center movie theater, but the 1,000-person concert hall at Lincoln Center in New York. We sold it out. And, it was just this incredible event where we showed the film. Bill was there. We had Neil deGrasse Tyson come in and do the Q&A with Bill afterwards. I mean, it was just this incredible. We had a red carpet. We had a picture opportunity where you could take your picture with Bill before the screening, and it was just incredible. And it was so much fun. And our community was there. We by the way, we decided to do that 2 weeks before the date, and we still sold it out. And but that's the kind of power that a community of like-minded people can have, that we can collectively back something like this and then enable those experiences for ourselves. And that was a ticketed event, so it's not like no one in our community expects to go to something like that for free. They'll happily pay for it, and then we expand that beyond our community, and now we're driving revenue for the project that they are all invested in. So increasing the likelihood of them getting their money back, and plus a profit. And then our other film, we have another film called My Dead Friend Zoe. This is also a project that we took out to our community. In that case, we had some investors that were willing to. By the way, the Shatner doc, we had one investor that was willing to pay for the whole thing, but we told that investor, where he said, well, we kind of want to go to our community and give them. And so then, that investor came in, we kind of cut them back to a smaller piece, but they're still participating. With My Dead Friend Zoe, we also had an investment partner that was willing to help us finance that project. But about 3/4 of the total film's budget came from our community, just directly from our community. And, that was a bigger project with Morgan Freeman, Ed Harris, Sonequa Martin Green, Natalie Morales, Utkarsh Ambakar, Gloria Rubin. And we submitted that. We ended up getting multiple festival invites when we finished that film. And this is this film is really, I mean, it's a really funny drama about a really sad issue. And it's about mental health and veterans and PTSD, but it's the perspective on it is so unique and fresh. And the way and it's, and I think, getting back to that whole like projects with purpose, our community loves those types of things, like when we can get involved. This is a movie that will help people, but it's also super entertaining. People are calling for, nominations for some of our actors and even for the film. It won the audience award, had multiple rounds of standing ovations at South by Southwest. And now we're in discussions we have multiple offers for distribution. We're just, trying to find the best one and carve out the best path forward for it. But that's a project that we hope to have in theaters, by the end of this year. And, if you think about it, we were financing that project. Like, we announced that project almost about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago. And in a year, that was before we had any cast. We had basically just told our community, hey, we like this project. We like this filmmaker. He's a first-time feature filmmaker, but he's got a really important and poignant story. He produced a short. We believe in his vision for this film. We want to back it. And then a year later, we have financed a film with Morgan Freeman, Ed Harris, Sonequa, like that incredible cast that is still like beyond our wildest imagination. CAA is repping it. It gets multiple festival invites. It was one of the first films that the festivals were inviting, and now we're going to be releasing it in theaters. So that journey, our community came along with us. They were involved in that project before Ed Harris attached and before Morgan Freeman attached. And that experience, like when we're able to tell them, and sometimes we tell them before we tell the trades. Chris doesn't like it when we do that because he likes to get the exclusive. But we tend to hey, we've got Ed Harris, and by the way, it's going to be in deadline in an hour. But yeah, it's been a really cool experience, and we've got more. We've got multiple, projects that we're teeing up. We have a TV series that is got a ton of traction right now. So yeah, we're just going to keep building.
That sounds fantastic. I love the fact that it's moving so quickly as well. I'm curious, so how do you decide on the projects? Do you put a few to your community, and is there a voting system? Do you say, what do you like the best, or how does that
Yeah,
come about?
yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, we always have our community at the center of kind of like our mindset and like what types of projects we want to get involved in, and so we have something in our kind of tool chest because a big part of nurturing and managing and interacting with this community is our platform. Like, how do we communicate with them? So we have something called Impulse, and Impulse is, we might use Impulse when we're, about to release a trailer and we want to get feedback on it. Maybe we have 3 or 4 versions and we put it out to our community and get some feedback on it. In other cases, when we're deciding what projects, we have a handful of projects in front of us or that we're contemplating and we want to get their feedback, we'll put those in an Impulse. Other times we might say, what genre are we missing? And actually that resulted, one of our impulses, our community asked us if we actually, there are 2 things related to this that you'll love. One is we got feedback from our community that they would love to see, they like horror, they like sci-fi, like we know all the genres they like, but they were asking, could we do a true crime thriller? And something, true crime wasn't something that, we had done yet. And so we went out and we found a project, and it's called The Man in the White Van. And we produced that project. That was before we went out to our community for finance. So we had one financier that financed that project. It had Sean Astin, Ali Larder, Breck Basinger, Madison Wolfe, Sky Jackson, great cast. And it's an amazing movie. That movie, we don't have a release date for it yet, but that movie we're hoping to release in the fall. It's kind of it's sort of like a PG-13 horror movie. It's not a slasher movie, but it is based on real events. And it's telling one woman in particular her true story about. So in the United States, we have this, you know, folklore that everybody is sort of familiar with, and their parents all tell them when they're growing up, stay away from the man in the white van.
Yeah, we
And
do too. The white van
yeah,
man, yeah.
you've heard about that. Well, it's, the reason your parents warned you about that is justified, because in the 70s there were, real horrible people doing horrible things. And but what our approach to this film is very, very unique, and the way the script is written, um, the the perspective is really from the victim's perspective. There's no empathy or like celebration of the serial killer himself. In fact, we don't even cast that role. So it's just a stunt person playing, but you see a figure and he's in the van, and so you're aware of him. But we're really taking a kind of a different, fresh approach to like, how do we do serial killer true crime movies? Most of the time, we always like try to build some, you know, attachment to the serial killer themselves, which is always seems really strange to me. Um, but one other project that I think is really worth, it's probably the best example of what Legion M is all about. And when we produce, this project's still in the middle of its journey. But it's a project called Defiant, and it's the true story of a guy named Robert Smalls. I don't know if you've ever heard of Robert Smalls. If you haven't, that's okay. That's one of the reasons why this project has so much purpose for us. It actually came to us from our community. So we have a very active private Facebook group, and we call it a private Facebook group, but it's open for anyone to join as long as you're not, being obnoxious and just posting ads or something. But it's for our community, and it's really for us to have conversations about projects and different things, and people can propose things, and then we see how the rest of the community reacts to it. And a couple of years ago, someone posted a meme that goes around, the industry every year, typically around Black History Month in February, that calls on Hollywood to make this movie about this person, Robert Smalls. The meme goes something like, look, how many Fast and Furious movies and, Marvel, sequels and reboots do we need before we tell this true American hero's story? And so Robert Smalls was an enslaved man who was working on a Confederate warship during the Civil War. I mean, just even that in and of itself is just bizarre. So he's enslaved. He's working on this ship, defending slavery as an enslaved man. And one night, in literally the most audacious heist in the history of mankind, he stole the ship that he was working on, filled it with other enslaved family members and friends, and sailed it through the blockade. Had to pass multiple forts and pretend to be the captain and to do all the calls and the flags and figure it. It's like Ocean's 11 heist. Sails it to freedom, surrenders it to the North. This is at the height of the Civil War. Meets with Lincoln. Lincoln makes him a captain of the ship that he stole, and he sails in 17 naval battles on behalf of the North. Makes him a kind of an emissary for the war itself. At this point in time, he's the most famous Black person, in the world at that time. And because of this audacious thing that he had done, after that, he helped convince Lincoln to, let Blacks fight and join the army, and that helped turn the tide so that, the North ended up winning the war. After the war, he moves back south, becomes one of the first Black congressmen, starts the first compulsory public school, starts a railroad. Like, this guy, his career is just incredible. And what he did, he went from, the worst possible circumstances to really making a difference in the world. And so, that project, when it came to us, we were like, wow, this is amazing and this is huge. But, we're always pretty practical about setting expectations. Like, okay, we hear you. We know that we would love to make this movie. We would love to get involved and, figure out how to do something, important with this story. And I'm happy to report that, we're publishing a graphic novel. We have Robert Small's family involved in our project. We have Bill Duke, Marvin Jones. We have Rob Edwards, the screenwriter from Princess and the Frog and Treasure Planet and Fresh Prince. He's writing, we're actually publishing the graphic novel first, but the graphic novel is basically the bones of the feature film. But we want to publish the IP. We already have schools ordering, school districts or ordering our graphic novels. And we backed that with our community. So we told our community, all right, this is the team we're assembling. Oh, and at one point we get the family involved. Now we've got the family involved, and he's a great grandson of Robert Smalls. So he's like because Robert Smalls is a part of our history that is now being kind of discovered. And even the Navy is recommissioning some ships and naming them after him. And so the world is starting to wake up to why is this part of our history just been omitted? It just wasn't
never been
available.
told
No one had
before.
ever heard of
It's
it.
ridiculous.
Yeah. And so that's what we're changing. There's literally no books have been written. I mean, there's small little things, and there's a Wikipedia page and a small little museum in Charleston. People know about it. It's a fact. It's not like there's any argument over that. It's just no one felt like that was a story worth telling. And so we're telling that story. We're super excited. We have some of the top, Black comic book artists involved in our project, like, people that helped create Black Panther comic books. And yeah, we're beyond excited. It's a big project. It'll be, ultimately when we're finished, it'll be the poster child for what Legion M should stand for, because it came from our community. This is what we want. We want to, like, we listen to our community. They say, hey, this is important to us. Is there anything you can do? And we set our minds to it, and now we're doing it.
That's brilliant. It's not an easy thing to do that you've made work. How did you get it to work in? Because it's not easy to,
It's a good question. I don't know.
Startup kind of thing. How did you bring it together in the beginning? How did you get funding for the idea? And
yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would say that, like, I mentioned kind of my journey to, like, getting to this point, and my co-founder for this company is also my co-founder from our last company. And I would say that, the first company we started together was an early streaming company called Moby TV. In fact, we had offices in London, and that was what I was living over there, in 2012 for this company. And that company ended up, we started it as a technology company that became a streaming company, and then streaming, kind of blurred the lines between, streaming and entertainment. We're licensing content. So that got us kind of, closer to the inner circles of Hollywood, but still more as kind of like outsiders. We like to think of ourselves, by the way, as insiders with an outsider's perspective. We won an Emmy with that company. We had great success. I mean, we had offices around the world, and hundreds of employees, and we powered some of the biggest and largest, streaming installations around the world. And it was just absolutely fantastic. And when Jeff and I, Jeff peeled off to start another company. And then when I moved back from London, I was peeling off. This was 2015. And Jeff and I started talking about, well, what would we do? We wanted to do something together again. And we knew we wanted it to be an entertainment. We also wanted it to be disruptive, something. And we love kind of crazy ideas. This is a crazy idea. No one's ever done this before. An entertainment company owned by fans. I mean, it seems obvious, and like, it makes you ask the question, like, why has no one ever done this before? A big part of that is that the securities laws up until 2016, it's not that they didn't allow it; they made it really challenging to do. I mean, it was almost impossible to do. And so in 2016, the United States finally had available to us equity crowdfunding, which I think had been around for a couple of years already in the UK. But as a country that prides itself on our entrepreneurialism and our support of entrepreneurs, it's kind of surprising that it took us so long to amend those rules, because what most people don't realize, and we actually had a firsthand experience with this, like when we started that first company, Moby TV, that grew like wildfire, and the valuations grew and everything. We had friends and family that invested in us early. And when we finally met with the lawyers and were setting up the company, I mean, these were like siblings. The lawyers told us, well, unless these investors are accredited investors, legally, they're not allowed to invest in your company. And we're like, oh, well, it's fine. It's like my dad and my brother. I don't think you need to worry. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter what your relationship with. Legally, they're not allowed to invest in startups. And we're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So, several years later, 15 years later, we come back to it, and we're realizing that, okay, there's this legislature that's finally going to change that, and that people could invest in projects that are, just getting started, because the value, I mean, look, investing in startups is super risky. But when you hit one, the ROI is so much higher than anything you're going to find, in the stock market or your average company. And that's why there's been a very strong contingent of, powerful people that wanted to keep it to themselves. Why would they open it up if they can be the exclusive domain of the wealthy elite? They're the only ones that can invest in these super high ROI, companies. And, I get where all the rules come from, just because it's there to protect investors. But I don't know, people have, common sense, and they can, there's so much data available nowadays. And like I said, for the right companies, and we really take pride in this, at Legion M, like, we warn people about the risk. We don't want people thinking like this is a safe place for your retirement fund or your college, tuition fund. Like, this is like gambling, right? I mean, it's maybe smart gambling because if you're choosing correctly and you're doing your due diligence, but just know that, it's not like if Legion M fails, our stock might go down a little bit. It's like our stock goes away, right? And everyone loses everything they put in. But I think if you start with that, investors, like, they understand that. And for us, we would much rather have 1 million investors all investing $100 than a handful of investors that have millions of dollars at stake. Because 1 million investors, let's say the average stays where it is now at 400. When we reach our goal of 1 million investors, we'll have raised $400 million for the company. That's more than enough money for the company. And that doesn't include, the money that we would raise, separately for the individual projects that gets paid back, in the waterfall.
When you started the
Did
company,
I answer your question?
Yeah.
How did we start it? Well,
Yeah,
so anyway, it was
okay.
basically the new rules were enabling this. And Jeff and I realized that this might be like, a once in a lifetime chance to be literally the first company that's owned by fans and owned by, a built-in audience, our community of people. And when we first started it, we didn't, the first money we raised publicly was with the community, like that. And everything we've done to date has always been, so we got a little bit of seed capital from people that had invested in us before and knew us, and like really close relationships. Some of them friends, but also just people that trusted us, knew our track record, knew what we could do. In fact, we had one investor literally send us a check, and it was a pretty sizable, not, I mean, sizable, it was, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and said, I don't know what company you and Jeff are talking about, but I want to be the first investor. So
Believed in you.
we had that, and that got us started. And then, then we went to the community, and the reaction to our, I mean, it was looking back at it, it's really interesting because we didn't really have a lot to show other than our track record and our background. We were just telling people what we wanted to do back then. Now we have so much to show for it, right? Like, we've been around, we've done a lot, like, and we have a lot of people in our community that vouch for us. And we have people in our community that have tattooed the Legion M logo on their body. And,
wow.
that's an endorsement right there. Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think your chances were of success were when you had the seed of an idea?
I think this is one of the afflictions of an entrepreneur, is that you think very optimistically, like, always. Like, it's just everything, and especially when you've had success. Like, when we started Moby TV, that was like, we went through several years. It wasn't easy, right? Looking back at it, when I think long and hard, it was really hard. It took us several years before we really hit. And then it grew like a rocket ship and just was like, it just took off. And I think, so we kind of went in knowing that, like, this is going to be hard for a few years. But then, it should ultimately, we're big believers in the flywheel. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept. It was popularized in a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And the whole idea is that you're investing in something that gives the company a long-term sustainable, but also accumulating advantage over competition. And so, it's harder to start a company when you're investing in the flywheel, because you're not just trying to make it successful right away. You want it to be successful, but you want to take the time and the energy to invest in this thing that's going to make it exponentially more successful in the future. Right. And so if you look at other companies, like it's kind of like what Amazon did. If you look at what Amazon has done, for the longest time, people were criticizing Amazon, like, why don't they just stick with books and create a profit or do whatever? And Bezos had a vision for what he wanted to do, and he knew that if he just kept investing in this core platform, he would be accumulating, significant advantages. And now when we look at it, it's like, it seems so obvious, but it's like, okay, yeah, now we see, now it's like almost gone too far. Like he's got such a strong advantage, it's almost like an antitrust, situation. But so anyway, with Legion M, our advantage is our community, right? And so that's just priority number one. We're investing in our community and growing that community from 50,000 to 100,000 to 500,000 to a million. That's our goal, because we know that a community of 5,000 people is really cool and interesting, and we can do some small things, but it's probably not going to change the world the way we expect it would. Uh, a community of 50,000 is actually really powerful. And what we've seen is, we've had a glimpse of it now to know that, oh, wow, okay, so now we're at a point where we can finance the film. We can be guided by our community to make good choices, then finance, with our community. So we're not dependent on other gatekeepers in the industry saying, oh, we gotta get someone else's permission to make our movie. But then most importantly, our community is obviously there when we release our projects, right? So if we can make our projects more successful and, reduce the downside risk, now all of a sudden that flywheel starts to turn, and it starts to accumulate advantages where, when we get to 100,000, it's twice as powerful. It's actually probably three times more powerful, because, the every new investor is adding, momentum to the flywheel. And, that flywheel is what gets us into bigger and better projects and helps them become more successful. And so as it starts to spin faster, we get into bigger and better projects. They're more successful, brings in more community, bigger and better projects. And you can see how this just becomes kind of like a snowball. Right now, we're pushing that snowball up the hill, but eventually it'll roll downhill, and, it'll be amazing. So that's what we're excited about. But to answer your question, yeah, we've had startups fail before too. So we know what that feels like and how hard that can be. So we're, I don't know, I think perseverance and hard work, and, we don't take anything for granted. And, one of the biggest things that I would say that Legion M has been mindful of, and just is not being naive about, what how easy success comes, right? And making sure that we are judicious with how we spend our money. Jeff and I are super scrappy. I mean, when we travel, we still share a hotel room. Like we're, very scrappy. Like we just are. Like, I mean, we always will be. Just because, most companies, when they don't succeed, it's usually because they ran out of money. And, that's and it might have been that if they were just a little smarter with how they managed their runway, they could have gotten to that point where they really took off. It's like and I mean, if you listen to other entrepreneurs and people out there, and I'm sure a lot of the guests on your show, they talk about, you know, how long it takes sometimes for things to hit, and why, you need to stick with it, and and perseverance is what pays in the end.
Mm. That was one of my questions. What was your main takeaway from, um, your having your startups before, and what have you taken from those and to make you successful now? So would you say that was, perseverance and being frugal, shall we say, were the main
Yeah,
takeaways that have brought you success this time?
that's a huge factor, but one of the things, and I alluded to this early on, and it's just something, I mean, I believe so heartily in this topic of purpose that I actually teach a class on for Northwestern Kellogg and Northwestern Pritzker, the graduate schools, about culture in the workplace, and primarily in it's called building innovation teams and culture, and really it's about having purpose, right? And what is that purpose, and understanding, like, how do you create the right culture in your company? Because if you're going to start a company, right, all the odds are against you, right? You have to defy the odds. So
Massively.
you're climbing a mountain that's, during a hailstorm, right? Like, I mean, there's so much, so many forces against you trying to do it, that you need to find ways to, like, break through that. And one of the things that I really truly believe in is that we all go to work every day, but when we go to work with purpose and we're working on something we believe in, we work at an exponentially different kind of productivity level. And our the way our mind thinks, and the way we attack problems, and the way we solve problems is just different when we're not just going to a job, but we have a calling. And I really believe that, like, that's a huge part of what separates successful companies from companies that might be successful but not at the same level, is just, what is the purpose, beyond the vision? Because it's one thing to have a vision and, like, what you're setting out to do, but why? What's the goal, and how does it help people? And we all want to give meaning to our work, and I think when you can combine those things and all the passion, right? Because we're at the cross section of, you know, um, my passions, which is I'm really grateful for, but a lot of people's passion, entertainment, disruption, making positive change in the world. Like, wow, who doesn't want to be involved in something like that? And if it can also, be a viable business, that gets a financial return, then that's the best thing possible.
Mm. You talked about events earlier on, events like screenings and things that you have
Yep.
going on in the States, but some of your communities outside of the States, have you got anything planned, like in the UK or Europe?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, we've done a few events actually in London, and we tend to. I mean, a lot of our events happen in LA or in New York, but we, like, even with our William Shatner doc, we took it out. We went to Richmond, Virginia. We went to Bloomington, Indiana. We're talking to Bill about taking it over to Europe, actually, because he would love to go. And we had such a good time, like, traveling together and doing these events. Um, it's really important to us that we spread these out. And like I said earlier with Bill, we really, he's such an amazing person. He's got so much energy, but he is 93, so we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
We can't just put him on, like, a tour bus and go from town to town.
See you later.
But there are other projects, like we're already talking. It remains to be seen, like, how we're gonna do this. But with our film, My Dead Friend Zoe, or The Man in the White Van, um, those are projects that we would, it's a younger cast. They're up for doing stuff. And, for us, like, one of our most important objectives, and something that we've been talking about since we started the company, is something we call opening the gates to Hollywood. Right? That we don't believe in this industry that's got this iron wall between, those who make the content and decide what everyone's going to watch, and those who watch the content. We don't believe in that. Like, that is a big part of our community, is to break down that barrier. And,
Give people a
doing
voice.
that means also taking these experiences out to people, right? We can't count on, some of our community will fly in and can afford to fly in, from overseas even.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, we had one of the premiere parties we had for William Shatner was on his birthday, and then we had a birthday party for him afterwards, and we had people from all over the world come in for that, and that was just an
Wow.
amazing experience. We had Kevin Smith MC it, and yeah, there were 800 people at that party. We hosted it in that, so this is great. So we showed the film at the Culver theaters. We started with their biggest theater, right? And sold that out, and then added the next biggest theater, sold that out, added a third theater, and and the theater owner was like, "Hey, I can maybe get you one more theater, but then you got to stop selling tickets." We sold out 4 theaters in this, multi-complex, and then we
Wow.
hosted a party. Walking distance from the theater was the Paramount stages where they had shot the original Star Trek pilot. And so we rented out there. It's now owned by Amazon, but we rented out that soundstage and then just made it
Perfect.
into William Shatner's birthday party. We had a replica of the
Wow.
bridge, we had a stage, we had a Star Trek band. I mean, it was incredible. It was a total blast. And the thing is, we had sponsors. We had we had an ice luge from Pantalones, tequila. We had, but so it was a ticketed event. So this whole exercise was not only fun, like it was a great experience for the 800 people that came to it, including Bill, but it was also, we made money on it, and the money goes into paying back the investors on the film. So it's a kind of a no-brainer. And if we can be doing more of those, I think that's exactly what we want to be doing. So yeah, maybe bringing Bill to Europe at some point, and the
Yeah,
UK. If we go to Europe, we're definitely going to hit London.
sure. And it's also very good marketing, isn't it? All of it. So we haven't got much
Yeah.
time left, but do you have any golden nuggets to do with marketing and yeah, what our filmmakers can be doing to be marketing their films or things like that?
Well, I would say, like I mean, and Chris Black is actually to thank for a big part of this, when, depending on, who's involved in your film, like I would say, like, for the William Shatner doc, because we didn't have a huge marketing budget on that, but we did have William Shatner. And, we
Yeah.
were able to get William Shatner on the Today Show, Jimmy Kimmel, Bill Maher, Kelly Clarkson. I mean, he was everywhere. And I feel like, that stuff is it's more attainable than, having the studios have millions of dollars and can do the bus shelter ads and,
Mm.
paint the town with the brand. But, I think independent projects, we need to be more creative, and, find the kind of, I don't know, grassroots, marketing approaches and guerrilla tactics. And a big part of our secret is, our community, and just looking to them and creating these experiences for them that they can share and they can invite friends to. And yeah, I would say Kevin Smith once famously said that, the most expensive part of making a film is actually not making the film. It's marketing the film and finding the audience. And he's so correct about that. And I think it's one of the areas where, like, Legion M, like, that's what we're looking to solve, is if we can lower that expense, then,
Mm.
a lot more movies can be made, and made in a profitable way.
I think what you're doing great is what you're doing extremely well is having a lot of fun, and that's always very addictive, and it's like bees to honey, isn't it?
Well, it's the cool thing about it is, with Legion M, like, and we're always really grateful for this, is that, having fun and having a good business aren't inextricably, they're tied together. The more fun our community's having, the more, successful the company is going to be financially and on the business side. Like I said, all those events that we did for the William Shatner doc were a huge part of our monetization of that project. I mean, probably almost half of the theatrical, income that we created came from these large events and creating these experiences.
I mean, I feel like I'm missing out. I'm like, oh, I might have to sign up to Legion M now. I'm like, yeah.
Well, you can join for
Promo.
free. Yeah, you should join. You should be a part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like I should. Brilliant.
Thank you. No, yeah, I mean, we're like you asked earlier, who are we open to? Everybody. Like, and one thing that I like, that we believe in is we don't take any political, sides. So we have people from, all, what unites our community together is our shared love of entertainment. And that's it, bar none. We don't take sides politically. We stay away from certain topics if they're gonna we don't want to create any division in our community. But there's so many topics and things that we all agree on that, there's still plenty for us to do.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, I will say thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been brilliant, really interesting, and I love what you're doing. And I'm so glad that there's people out there, pursuing these kinds of dreams and building communities and changing the film industry landscape. It's really exciting, and I love hearing all about it, and I know the audience will as well. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having us on and for doing what you do. Yeah, it's cool. It's informative. We all need information and insight. So thank you for including us and for doing your podcast.
Of course. Bye.
All right, take care.